What happens when a black teenage boy in glasses becomes a threat to the system just for being too smart? When they try to silence him with force, but he fights back with his voice. What happened next left the entire country stunned. Kamari West didn't look like trouble. He didn't wear his jeans sagging off his hips. No bling, no grill, no chain swinging across his chest like he was a rejected backup dancer from a forgotten rap video. He wasn't out here slinging mixtapes or starting beefs on Instagram. Kamari was neat, the kind of neat that made people squint, like, what are you trying to prove? Glasses thick enough to survive a small explosion, sneakers clean enough to eat off of, and a posture so straight it looked like he had physics equations etched into his spine. He had just walked out of the corner store after helping an elderly woman carry her bags across the parking lot. Not for show, not for TikTok clout. He just helped because his mama raised him with the kind of manners that don't come from TV, but from long talks at the dinner table, and a mother's tired eyes saying, "Baby, be better than this world." Today was Tuesday, and Tuesday meant science fair. Not just any science fair, Kamari's personal battlefield. While the other kids brought baking soda volcanoes and glued macaroni to cardboard, Kamari had built a working microturbine. Real engineering, real innovation, a project that could power a small home for 3 hours using nothing but kinetic force and design ingenuity. Kamari was headed to the bus stop, folder under his arm, brain firing like a jet engine, thinking about the presentation. He had no idea his future was about to get blindsided by the same system he'd been trying to outthink his whole life. Because in cities like this, it doesn't matter how sharp your mind is. If you're black and look like you know what you're doing, somebody always thinks you're up to something. He stood on the corner of 4th and Brooklyn Avenue, his backpack resting against one leg, fingers clutched around a folder thick with blueprints and calculations. His expression was calm, focused. He looked like a kid on his way to prove something. And that was the problem. The patrol car pulled up slow, like it had been circling the block for fun. White Crown Victoria, old model, the kind with a bumper that says, "Don't run, it's pointless." Lights off, engine humming like a snake waiting to strike. The door swung open with a groan, and out stepped Officer Douglas Harper. Stocky, pale, built like he never outgrew high school football and hadn't learned much since. He walked up with that deliberate cop swagger, hand already brushing the edge of his belt. Eyes scanning Kamari like he was checking for tags on stolen meat. "You," Harper barked, voice hard with authority and a hint of boredom. "What are you doing?" Kamari blinked, calm. "Just waiting for the bus, sir." Harper looked him up and down, and something shifted behind those tired eyes. Suspicion, irritation, and something colder. Disgust. Kamari knew that look. He'd seen it in department stores, in classroom glares, and how the world flinched when a black boy spoke too clearly. "What's with the attitude?" "I don't believe I have one, sir." Harper stepped closer. "You trying to be smart with me?" That right there, that question, wasn't really a question. It was a warning dressed like one. It meant lower your voice, shrink your posture, act dumb, or get taught a lesson. Kamari didn't move. "I'm not trying anything, sir." But Harper was already seeing what he wanted to see. That folder full of blueprints, contraband, those glasses, conceit, that upright spine, defiance. He'd made up his mind before Kamari even spoke. Then it happened. No warning, no lead-up. Just a fist. A blunt, heavy blow landed square on Kamari's temple, a thud that echoed down the block. Kamari dropped like a sack of textbooks, folder flying, papers scattering across the sidewalk like dreams splattered in public. People froze. Phones came out, yes, but no one stepped in. Because this wasn't new. A black kid on the pavement, a white cop standing over him. That's not news, that's just another Tuesday. "You think you're better than me?" Harper snarled, grabbing Kamari by the arm and yanking him up. Blood dripped from Kamari's lip, and he still managed to say, through grit and pain, "I didn't do anything." But that didn't matter. Harper shoved him toward the cruiser like trash on the curb. A woman with a stroller turned away. A man in a suit pretended to take a call. The world did what it always does when justice falters. It looked the other way. 30 minutes later, Kamari was in a holding cell. No charges, no phone call, no lawyer, just held. Because sometimes the system doesn't need a reason. Sometimes your existence is the reason. His parents arrived. His father, a high school physics teacher. His mother, a night shift nurse, still in scrubs. They weren't allowed in at first. A young cop at the desk laughed and said, "Your son talks too fancy for his own good." When they finally released him that evening, Kamari walked out with a busted lip, a dull headache, and something new behind his eyes. Not fear, not even anger, just clarity, like something inside him had snapped into place. But the next day was worse. At school, the place that was supposed to be safe, supposed to nurture, Kamari was called into the assistant principal's office. "Kamari, have a seat," Mr. Reynolds said, with a smile too soft to trust. Kamari sat. "We're aware of the incident," Reynolds said, sipping coffee that smelled like burnt hope. "And while we're very concerned for your well-being, we're also concerned about the school's reputation." Kamari narrowed his eyes. "You mean the school doesn't want the kid going viral for being assaulted by police?" "Let's not be dramatic," Reynolds chuckled nervously. "You've applied to NASA's summer program, right? We wouldn't want this attention to impact your chances. Translation? Be quiet. Be invisible. Be the good little student who takes the hit and thanks them for the opportunity." Kamari stood. "Thanks for your concern," he said, voice flat, "but I'll take my chances with the truth." He left the office with a burning in his chest. Like the punch Harper threw hadn't landed just on his head, but on his future, his dignity, his name. That night his phone rang. Not NASA, not a lawyer, a journalist. "We saw the footage," the voice said. "We want to tell your story." Kamari agreed. For the first time, he felt like his voice might carry further than the walls they tried to lock him behind. But morning brought a new message. His bike, parked near the school fence, had been spray-painted. White letters, thick and sloppy. "Nerd." It wasn't meant as a joke, it was a threat. A warning wrapped in mockery. And just beyond the parking lot, standing by his cruiser with a paper coffee cup, was Officer Harper. Watching, Kamari didn't flinch, not this time. He picked up his folder, wiped the dust off its cover, and headed toward the library. Because, as his grandmother once told him, "When they push you down, baby, you build something taller, something they can't tear down." And Kamari was about to build a rocket. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how this story turned the whole system on its head. Kamari wasn't used to silent libraries. Not this kind of silence. Not the kind that pressed down on your shoulders like judgment. The air was thick with old dust, and the overhead fluorescent lights flickered like they were offended by his optimism. He sat alone, hunched over a scratched wooden table with yellow edges. The only sound the low hum of electricity and the soft crinkle of paper as he sifted through his stack. Printed blueprints of his microturbine, a copy of the email from NASA, and 2 missed calls from a number he didn't recognize. On his face, that same expression, the one that got him labeled with words like cocky, mouthy, or, as Officer Harper would have called it, a little too confident for someone your color. A calm, collected kind of defiance. Not loud, not angry, just unshaken. But no matter how hard he tried to lock back into equations, dimensions, torque calculations, his mind refused to cooperate. All he could see was Harper's fist. All he could hear was the mocking in Mr. Reynolds' voice. All he could smell was that thick, chemical stink of the paint someone had sprayed on his bike. White letters. Nerd! As if that word was supposed to make him feel smaller. And maybe it would have. For someone else. But not Kamari. That was when he heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, followed by a soft clearing of the throat. He looked up. Mrs. Aldridge. She was a throwback from a different era. Somewhere in her 60s, glasses dangling from a chain, cardigan stretched over a frame that looked fragile, but moved with purpose. She had the kind of face that could go from sweet to steel in one sentence. The kind of woman who, back in '68, probably faced down fire hoses and helmeted men, twice her size and never blinked. She set a box down on the table with a solid thumb. "This is for you," she said plainly. Kamari blinked. Inside the box, old technical manuals, aerodynamics, engineering textbooks, even a dusty NASA publication from the '80s. "My husband and I used to dream one of our sons would make it to NASA," she said. "Didn't happen. Life got in the way. But when I saw your name in the news, I thought, maybe it's time to pass this along. Do right by us, Kamari. Build something they can't ignore." He didn't say thank you, not out of rudeness, but because his throat was too tight to speak. He just nodded, eyes glistening, jaw set. Because in a city full of people talking about image and reputation, here was someone handing him tools, quietly, with respect. And then it started. First hit, the media. The video of Officer Harper's attack hit the internet like a lightning strike. TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. People reposted it, added captions like, "All he did was look smart," and "He had blueprints, not bullets." Someone even layered it with violin music, slow motion, turning his pain into performance. But it worked. The floodgates opened. Comments poured in from mothers, grandfathers, teachers. "That's my son. That's me 30 years ago. That's why we march." The story broke out of the neighborhood, then the city, then the state. It became national, and that was when the school lost its cool. Second hit, the school board. Kamari was called in again. Same office, same coffee-stained desk, same soft-smiling Mr. Reynolds. "This has become a bit much," Reynolds started, adjusting his tie with twitchy fingers. "We're asking you to withdraw, temporarily from the NASA program, until this situation resolves." Kamari leaned forward, voice calm. "So I'm supposed to give up my dream because your system broke my face?" No, it's just, you want me invisible. That's all." Silence. The truth sat in the room like a ghost neither of them could ignore. Kamari stood and left without waiting for a response. Third hit. So-called friends. The same classmates who had messaged support, left likes and comments, were now whispering behind his back. Some said he was exaggerating. Some said he knew what he was doing when he talked back to a cop. One kid even balled up a note and tossed it at him during lunch. It landed on Kamari's tray, soaked in milk. 3 words, "You ain't NASA." By the time school let out, Kamari's patience was cracked. But just when he thought the day had maxed out on disrespect, his phone buzzed. Same unknown number. He answered, "This is Kamari West?" "Yes." "Dr. Lawrence Hardy. I work with NASA's High School Initiative program. We've reviewed your application. And well, we've seen the footage." Kamari froze. "You're not under legal restriction, correct?" "No, sir." "Well, we'd like to confirm your placement in the program. Full sponsorship, travel, housing, everything. In fact, we're hosting a workshop on microturbine technology next week. Would you be willing to speak?" Silence, not because he was shocked, but because he realized now he wasn't just a student. He was a symbol, and symbols, they get watched. "Yes," he finally said. "I'd be honored." The next morning, the world caught fire. Cameras lined the school gates, news trucks, protest signs, parents holding pictures of Kamari with captions like, "NASA saw a star, the police saw a threat." Microphones thrust forward like weapons. People chanting, "We are not too smart. We're just smart enough to survive." Inside City Hall, another storm was brewing. Thanks to Charlene Jenkins, a 58-year-old former history teacher turned investigative powerhouse, Harper's past was laid bare for the public. She dug up complaint after complaint. 5 separate reports over 2 years, all from black teens, all shelved. No discipline. One victim, now a grown man, agreed to be interviewed on national TV. "He broke my wrist," the man said. "Told me if I didn't act so smart, I'd be safe." The quote went viral. It became a hashtag, a battle cry. Then came Kamari's speech. Live on Zoom, aired by a national outlet. He sat in a chair too big for his frame, but spoke like he owned the room. You're not afraid of me, he said. You're afraid of what I represent. A black kid with glasses, who reads, who builds, who doesn't flinch. You're not scared I'll hurt you. You're scared I'll pass you. The comment section exploded. Thousands watched, cheered, cried. But not everyone was cheering. That night, someone ripped the mailbox off Kamari's home. Inside, a note. Stay quiet, Starboy. His father hammered plywood across the windows. His mother didn't sleep. Kamari sat on the floor, folder in his lap, hands trembling but steady. Because now he knew too much, saw too clearly. There was no going back. This is it, the turning point. You've come this far. Don't stop now. What Kamari does next will flip the whole script. Stay locked in. The morning didn't start with coffee. It started with silence. The kind of silence that lives in the belly of a storm before it breaks. Kamari West woke up at 6 a.m., not from an alarm, not from noise outside his window, but from that deep down knowing, that electric shiver in his bones, that whisper that said, get up. Today they're going to try and break you for good. He didn't hesitate. He washed his face, buttoned up his favorite shirt, the one that always made adults call him too polished, as if looking put together was an offense. He shined his glasses until they caught the light just right. He smoothed his hair, straightened his spine, then stared in the mirror and let a crooked smile slide across his face. Well, he muttered, don't I just look like a walking threat today? Because today wasn't just any school day. Today was showdown day. A full school board meeting with the administration, community members, police representatives, and, oh yes, Officer Harper himself. The same man who thought a fist was the answer to a kid with blueprints. And this time, there'd be cameras, reporters, live streams, lights that burned bright and cold. The kind of public exposure that makes systems squirm. As Kamari approached the school, he felt it. The tension in the air, thick as smog. On the front steps stood uniformed officers and TV crews. Inside, wires, microphones, and nervous staffers trying to smile without sweating. The hallway smelled like floor wax and fear. And then he saw him, Harper, sitting in the auditorium like he belonged there. Arms crossed, face carved from granite and pride. But the eyes were the tell. They twitched, flickered. That wasn't confidence. That was confusion. That was disbelief that the kid he shoved into a cruiser was now walking in like a keynote speaker. The principal tried to greet him, voice syrupy sweet. Mr. West, please have a seat. Kamari didn't flinch. No, thank you, I'll stand. His voice cut clean through the room, clear, measured, firm like Newton's law. The judge, yes, they brought a real judge from the city council like this was some courtroom drama, cleared his throat and began reading from a folder. The incident involving Mr. West and Officer Harper has drawn significant attention. Kamari cut in, smooth but sharp. It wasn't an incident, it was an assault. Silence, the judge blinked. Young man, please. I'm not here to please, Kamari said. Not today. He dropped his folder on the table like a gavel. Out spilled photographs of bruises, medical reports, copies of ignored complaints filed by other black students against Harper, all quietly dismissed by the same people now pretending to be shocked. This isn't just about me, Kamari said. This is about how you all sat still while the system broke people like me down. And now I'm speaking. Loud enough for all of you. There was a pause, a charged stillness. Then, a sound. Slow, deliberate. Applause. An older woman in a floral hat clapped once, then again. Another followed, then more. In seconds, the room was filled with clapping. Reporters, parents, even a few faculty members. And Harper looked down. Kamari wasn't finished. My father taught me, he said, voice steady, that if you've got the truth, hold it tight. Because out here, if you're black and know math, they already fear you. If you speak too well, They try to cut you down. If you refuse to be silent, they try to erase you. He stopped. Let that sit. The room was holding its breath. The judge finally leaned forward. Mr. West, you applied to the NASA Youth Engineering Program, correct? I didn't just apply, Kamari said. I was accepted, and I'm going. Not just for me, but for every kid you ever told to sit down, lower their voice, or dream smaller. A reporter stood, right in the middle of the shot. This is the statement we're leading with, she said. The whole country needs to hear this. Within an hour, the clip had gone viral. The headline read, "He didn't beg for justice, he took it." And Harper, it didn't happen instantly. Systems like this don't unravel quickly. But the thread had been pulled. First came the internal investigation, then the press, then the public pressure, protests, letters, phone calls from alumni and civil rights groups. And when it came out that Harper had misplaced evidence in past cases, well, it wasn't hard to connect the dots. The department had to cut him loose. Kamari? He was on a plane 2 weeks later, Houston bound. Destination, Johnson Space Center. His first day there, he met someone unexpected. A former shuttle astronaut, tall, dark-skinned, bald, with a handshake like steel. You made some noise, kid, the man said. At your age, I was trying to survive high school. You're out here shaking institutions. He clapped Kamari on the shoulder. Keep shaking. That night in the dorm room NASA had assigned him, Kamari sat with his folder in his lap. The same folder that once held dreams, then evidence, and now, possibilities. His mom called. They didn't talk long. You're not a kid anymore, she said. You're a force. They can't stop you with fists. Not anymore. Kamari didn't cry. He didn't shout. He didn't post it on social media. He just breathed. And the next morning, he launched. If you're reading this and you're angry, you're right. If you're reading this and you're proud, you're right. And if you ever think your voice is too small to matter, remember Kamari West. He didn't wait for permission. He made his too smart look into a weapon, and he fought.